Welcome to the Movies with Chill podcast. I'm your host, Chill. Today we'll be reviewing The Holdovers from 2023. The Holdovers is a Christmas drama film directed by Alexander Payne and written by David Hemingson, who drew inspiration from his time at prep school during his youth. Starring Paul Giamatti, Divine Joy Randolph, and Dominic Sessa. A strict prep school teacher must spend his winter break with some of his students while being housed at the school. Today, I am joined by Lee. How you doing today?
Doing all right.
Doing good. And then, unfortunately, David is on his 11th trip to Disney World. Or
I think it's a business trip this time. I don't know where he is, though.
Trip. Welcoming our second-time guest, Kevin. Yeah. Welcome back to the show.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Yeah, good deal. First, before we get into the Holdovers, you guys watch anything new this week?
Nothing new, really. I mean, I'm staying current on Silo and that other show I was talking about that day, The Jackal.
Okay,
which is still, in my opinion, really good. Annie's kind of left it.
Kind of done with it.
Yeah, but I like it a lot. I think it's really good.
Well, I'm trying to think what we've watched. I mean, of course, probably the best film in years. We watched the worldwide debut of the Hallmark Chiefs movie.
Yeah.
Annie watched that.
So.
Of course. Yeah.
And I just walked away.
She just walked away.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, Christian Okoye was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Trace Smith was in it, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Donna Kelsey was in it.
Yeah, Donna.
Cole Hardman. Some of them.
Yeah. Just finished watching part 2 of Cobra Kai, season 6. It was absolutely ridiculous. Like, they had 6 as this final season, and then they're doing the parts 1, 2, and 3. And then part 2, I mean, it's a soap opera now.
Yeah.
It's called the Sekai Taikai, which is like an international tournament. And so you had the Russians, the Irish, and Korean, and all this other stuff. And I was kind of laughing with Chelsea, where came in, she's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Oh, it's karate." These 2 guys were going at it, and then one guy got pushed off in the side. And then he started brawling with the people on the side. And the guy running the tournament gets up. He's like, "Hey, that's not allowed." And then the Russian team leader, of course, the Russians get kicked out because of doping. And the Russian team leader comes over, just pops him. And then, like, the last 20 minutes of the episode is just a huge brawl with everybody. So, too much time on Cobra Kai. I think you guys are good on that,
Yeah.
Who picked the Holdovers and why? Dad and I were wanting to do the Holdovers, and since it's a Christmas movie, figured we wait until now to do it. Pretty good. Our icebreaker this week is, what is a stereotype about prep school or private school that you think is accurate?
That I'd say that 90% of the student body is spoiled brats.
You think
entitled rich kids. Yeah.
I don't know. I hate saying this as an American, but I feel like it's one of those things now where it's you get what you pay for, unfortunately, which if I want the best opportunity for my son or for my kids, then I'm going to do my best to provide that for them. And unfortunately, we live in a world that's kind of like that, where you do have to pay for some of that stuff. But at the same time, if you want your kids to succeed, and I'm not saying that kids that don't go to private school or prep school aren't able to succeed, but of course they get a little bit more opportunities, which I think this film kind of conveys to one of our protagonists anyway. But
definitely.
What do you think?
So a stereotype that's accurate, you say?
Yeah.
I thought the movie did a pretty good job showing them a snapshot of what a prep school would be like. Because, I mean, you have people from all backgrounds. You have the ones on scholarship. You have the ones who fit the stereotype of spoiled prep school kids. So I don't know. I don't think I had any that it was...
preconceived notions. Yeah. I think that one thing that I kind of really learned is that you do think that, like, a bunch of rich kids going to these schools, but like you were saying, there are a lot of more international students. I didn't realize that there was such
I think there's some the true prep school that maybe aren't religiously based or affiliated. I think do match that. I mean, Kansas City has some that are probably going to match the stereotype of the spoiled rich kid, but then there are a lot of them that are affiliated with one religion or another, and so I mean, like, doesn't fit the stereotype of the spoiled rich kid. There's a lot of kids there for their faith reasons or a good education, and so I don't think that would apply to something like that.
Right. I got you. Before we talk about spoilers, let's get into the movie. The Holdovers has a runtime of 133 minutes. It premiered at Telluride August 31st of 2023 and a world release date of October 27th of 2023. Had a budget of $13 million and it grossed $45.6 million. Top box office for November 2023. Any guesses?
Killers of the Flower Moon.
The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbird and Snakes. Number 2, The Marvels. 3, Trolls Band Together. 4, Five Nights at Freddy's. 5, Napoleon. 6, Wish. 7, Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. 8, Thanksgiving. 9, Killers of the Flower Moon. 10 Priscilla, and 11 The Holdovers. Fun facts about the movie is that the entire film was shot in real and practical locations. No sets or sound stages were used. As such, many of the scenes were filmed at Fairhaven High School in Fairhaven, Massachusetts during February of 2022 and during the school's February break. At this time, the area received a massive snowstorm to the delight of the crew since many of the scenes took place during a snowstorm. They took full advantage of the winter weather as you see in the film. Yeah. So pretty cool.
Yeah.
Even though the movie features a heavy film look resonant of the 1970s, it was entirely shot digitally. All the hallmarks of like the celluloid film and then the film grain, dirt, and gate weave were added all in post-production.
Gotcha.
Kind of that style, yeah. Both Paul Giamatti and Divine Joy Randolph are graduates of Yale School of Drama, now known as the David Geffen School of Drama at Yale University. Giamatti received his MFA there in 1994 and Randolph in 2011. Also, Paul Giamatti's father, Bart Giamatti, was president of Yale from 1978 to 1986.
He was also the commissioner of baseball.
Pretty cool.
Yep.
And also, Divine Joy Randolph won Best Supporting Actress for this role.
She did a great job.
She did.
She nailed it. She, in my opinion, was one of the only likable people in the movie.
I think that Paul Giamatti and then Angus Tolley, I think they really kind of grew on me throughout the course of the movie, you know. Yeah. Anything else of note, non-spoilers?
No.
Non-spoilers. So I thought it was kind of cool that Dominic Sessa's first film, and that he was actually a student at Deerfield, which is where they filmed part of the movie at. And so when they were filming, the casting director asked if students wanted to audition, and he was one of them. I thought he did a fantastic job.
I did too,
he nailed the character, I thought.
I did too.
I thought he looks exactly like 25-year-old Tom Hanks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Like, if you were going to make a movie about Tom Hanks, that kid would play Tom Hanks in his late teens, early 20s.
I got you.
Even with the lip. Wow, you look just like him.
Based on that, I didn't have it in my notes, but whenever I was researching it, Paul Giamatti, I guess, saw his audition. From my understanding, Paul Giamatti kind of talked with the casting director and the director, because initially they were going to pass on him, and then Paul Giamatti allegedly talked them into casting him out for that role.
Oh, wow.
So, would you guys recommend people watch this movie? And if so, who would you recommend watch it?
I'd say probably people 15 and up. I mean, it's not inappropriate at all, in my opinion. It's just you're not going to hold anybody's attention any younger than that.
Right.
And you're pushing it with 15, I think. It's a decent movie. As far as Christmas goes, it's a Christmas movie. I mean, it happens during Christmas, and it has a very short-lived Christmas feel to it.
Right.
But I'd say fans of Paul Giamatti should see it because he killed it. Yeah. As usual, I think that guy's one of the most underrated actors that's ever blessed the screen. So that's who I'd say.
Would you recommend people watch this?
Yeah, definitely. Strongly recommend it. I thought it was a really good film. Love that era. I mean, 1970, and you've got a lot of material to work with when you have that time or that era film. It addressed Vietnam and privilege versus the not so privileged, and the difference in treatment. Just a lot of things.
Social, economical issues.
So I agree. I think 15 on up, 16 on up. And there's nothing inappropriate in the movie at all. It's just holding attention. More intellectual Dead Poet Society.
Right.
Is how I would refer to it as.
That's pretty accurate.
With a less lovable leading character.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I identified completely with Paul Giamatti's character, Paul. Yeah. I was like, I would be the exact same way. Right. I don't care who you are. You don't pass, you don't pass. I don't care who your daddy is.
Right. I would also strongly recommend that people watch this movie, but I do feel like if you're having a group over to try and entertain, this isn't the one.
No.
But like if you're wanting to just like sit down, I feel like this movie has kind of a really cool vibe to it, and also I love the cinematography of it, and I feel like that the cinematography of it, putting you in that 1970s and making not necessarily a period piece, but just an expression of things that were going on in the 70s. Yeah. It's hard to pinpoint my thoughts for who should watch this movie.
Just like it. Just watch it because I like it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. That could work too. Let's get into spoilers on your count, Lee.
Get after it.
All righty. But first, Trivia. Question 1. What is the name of the school?
Barton.
Barton Academy. Correct. How many people are being held over at the beginning of the movie?
4.
I got 7.
Oh, 7 at the beginning?
I thought it was Kuntz and then the football kid, the 2 younger kids. Those were the 4.
Yep, and then you had...
And then Angus joined after, so it counted
at the
beginning 4 because Angus wasn't supposed to be staying.
Right.
And then you've got, I guess if you're counting the cook, Mary and Paul, but I don't consider them being held over.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Question 3, what day is the group split in half?
Christmas Eve?
Do you have a guess?
The 18th?
So I have day 6, December 22nd.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Split the difference.
Right. Yeah. What enzyme can Mr. Hunnam not break down?
I can't think of the technical term.
Trimethylamine.
Trimethylamine.
You got me on the...
lactic acidosis.
Yeah,
and then that was on A Few Good Men.
That's right. Question 5. What year does the majority of the movie take place?
1970.
Correct. Bonus question. What was Chapter 6 about? Chapter 6 was the assignment that was...
Peloponnesian War.
That's correct. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get into our not so long form discussion.
You're introduced to Angus and Kuntz because Kuntz is upset that his cigarettes are gone and he accuses Angus of stealing them, which he probably did.
Yeah.
Because, spoiler, later in the film, he does admit that he just steals things.
Yeah.
So he can't help it.
There's a little bit of infighting between Kuntz and...
He really starts going after him.
Yeah.
Kind of being mean. I'll say this, that none of the prep school kids were really likable at first. Like, right. I didn't really care for our main character, Angus, too much. He seemed like he was also spoiled, and he was not the most cooperative kid.
No.
Just to not be cooperative.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of those kind of people. I understand they have their issues and whatnot, but if you can't get along with a modicum of common sense and responsibility.
But they're also 17. And
exactly. Well, he's 18, and he's been held back a couple times, so he's obviously got his own issues.
Right.
Yeah, none of those guys really were too likable at all.
He's like, I heard you trade some cigs for the porno mag.
I don't need porno. Get enough on my own.
Yeah,
at an all-boys school.
Yeah. I love the banter. And then we get introduced to Paul Hunnam, which is the teacher, played by Paul Giamatti. I think we get him coming into the classroom. All of the other classes are basically canceled
dismissed,
because all of the kids are getting ready to leave for winter break.
Yeah.
And Paul Giamatti is like, oh, I'm just going to pass out your test. And I feel like there was a D- average amongst all of those kids. And then the only person that got like a B
was Angus.
Yeah. All of these kids are complaining about, Dad's going to kill me.
I'm supposed to go to Cornell.
Yeah.
Doubtful.
I don't think so. Paul's being kind of a jerk about the whole thing.
Yeah.
We get the feeling that he's a very strict
he's definitely
teacher.
not a student's teacher.
No, not
at all. He's by the book, and he expects you to learn the material and be able to pass on your own. There's no exceptions. He is steadfast, and I identified with that real quick with him. He has absolutely no personable skills. He cannot relate to anybody, which is why most of the people around him can't stand him. I still think he did have a good control over his classroom. The deal that he struck with Angus was genius.
Yeah.
And then he just rips it away from him. Oh, yeah, you can thank him, since gets their good grades.
They're getting ready to start chapter 6.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, sir.
It's not a good time.
Not a good time.
We're not here.
We're going to be gone. And it's like, well,
I think it's absurd.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, you got some balls.
Yeah.
If I ever called one of my teachers absurd, even in public school, I guarantee you I would have spent some time.
How can you be so obtuse?
Yeah. I'd have spent some time with the principal, that's for sure.
Paul gives him a chance to have a retest because of Angus complaining and saying, let's not do that. Then all of the other kids miss the opportunity of being able to retake their test. Not only is it going to be like a retake, but it's going to be a average of your 2 scores. So even if you did score like an A, it'd still be like a C+ or something for some of these kids. Paul is pulled into the headmaster's office, and the headmaster's saying, yeah, Paul, I liked you and I respect you, but man, you got to be easier on these kids.
It's all because I flunked the senator's kid, isn't it? He goes, well, it is pretty important.
Our funding is very important, and if you keep failing some of these kids, then we're not going to have the funding or the recognition that we need to be getting.
You're going to have a reputation of don't send your kids here because they'll fail.
Right. Basically, the headmaster tells Paul, hey, one of the other teachers that was supposed to do the holdovers this year, his mom has lupus.
Yeah, which was a complete crock.
Oh, yeah.
That we found out later that, mom's got lupus. She might. I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm not a doctor. helicopter.
Yeah. Who's holding it over? Oh, Paul is?
Of course.
Okay, that's fine.
Of course it is.
We're not going to go through scene by scene because, again, we're just doing...
Way too long.
Angus is supposed to go off and meet up with his mom and then his stepdad.
Supposed to be going to St. Kitts for the holiday. And he was supposed to go to Boston and spend some time there. He told his mom that he really wanted to go to Boston. And come to find out that his mom is going to have a honeymoon with her new husband, even though they've been married since June.
Yes.
And they just haven't had the time, which to me, I thought was the most horrible thing you could do to your child over the holiday weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I did not identify with any of these parents that left their children behind, except for young Master Park, who lives in Korea. I can understand not making that trek back. That is far.
Yes.
But everybody else, well, maybe the Mormon kid whose parents were in Paraguay, but I think, especially the older kids, you leave them there, you're a jerk. You're just a jerk. And if you had children, you should have known that, yeah, it's your child 365 days a year, not just when it's convenient for you or messes with vacation plans. So I felt bad for those kids a little bit.
Yeah.
But their attitudes made it seem like, yeah, well, you got what you deserved. Right. That's why your parents don't want you.
Except for the dad that shows up on the helicopter.
Right.
And then takes...
You got the football star, you've got Kuntz, who Angus had a little tiff with at the beginning of the movie, and then you've got two younger students who don't play a very big part in the movie, but they did fine enough.
Oh, yeah.
Kuntz is a jerk, a complete jerk, and I hated him, completely hated him. The football player guy, I can't even think of his name. That's how memorable he was. But he was all right. He was supposed to go skiing at Haystack, but his dad wouldn't let him go unless he cut his hair.
Yep.
Because he looks like a damn hippie. You've got that group of kids, you've got Paul, and then you've got Mary, the cook. Again, hats off to her. She did an amazing job with her part.
And right before this, too, they have their chapel mass. During Mass, they're saying, we've lost a lot of kids to the Vietnam War that's been going on, including one of our own, Curtis Lee. Curtis Lee, we're told that it's the cook's son who passed away. I think it was the priest that said, no, our condolences. I can't imagine
Thoughts and
that.
prayers. I mean, that's how... I thought that was pretty powerful as far as having that in the chapel, because you see everyone there is white except for her.
Right.
And the only student that was killed in Vietnam from that school was the only black student in the school.
Like all these rich kids are going to college.
So, yeah, I mean, that was kind of symbolic as far as what real war was like. It was the haves and have-nots that ended up having to serve, and most of those killed were from
can't
people
go,
who didn't
man.
have the privilege.
Got bone spurs.
Yeah.
Can't go.
Yeah.
As far as, the other holdovers, I thought the two younger kids, even though they're there for just a brief amount of time, I did think they were important on the movie. Angus was a smartass in the beginning scenes, and hard to have a lot of empathy towards him. And then when he showed the empathy to the Korean kid who wet the bed, and then the other kid who's glove, I mean, it showed he really had a heart beneath that.
Yeah, I think those two kids were there to show that Angus was not a complete jerk all the time. I think what he does is he puts up this front like a lot of hurt people do.
Right.
Of, I'm going to put this up in front of me, and you can't get any closer. That way you can't hurt me, and that's the way I'm going to be. And then, he empathizes with the other two kids who are also stuck here without their parents on Christmas. And you've got Kuntz being a jerk to the Mormon kid and throwing his glove in the river, which I would have grabbed him and tossed him in myself. But whatever. The guy was just, hated him. Glad he got burnt to a crisp. But,
Get a little sun glare there.
Yeah. Burnt me to a crisp.
I really did enjoy the scene where Park is laying in bed and he's crying, and Angus is kind of a jerk at first, and he's like, come on, man, just go to bed. Park says, I just really miss my family, and he said, I don't want to be alone, and he said, I wet the bed. And now everybody's going to make fun of me, and even Paul, because Paul Giamatti, he has the kids, instead of just like hanging out and stuff like that, oh no, you got study time. Oh, now you got to do extracurriculars and running out in the cold and reading. And
he's so by the book. It's ridiculous.
Right.
And it's like, dude, it's 2 weeks off from school. Give me a break.
Yes.
And they don't even get to stay in their dorm rooms. They're staying in the infirmary together. So it's like a barracks.
Yeah.
It's the middle of winter in the Northeast. and they have a sheet and a tiny blanket. I'm like, you guys are going to freeze to death.
Especially in
1970. I know the heat in that place is probably ancient.
Yeah.
Oh, felt bad for them.
They're sitting down, and then Mary is the cook, and she's, just cooking for these 5 people. Kuntz is being a jerk, and he's like, man, we just had turkey earlier.
We have this for lunch. It was crappy then, too. Yeah. Man, you better shut up.
Mary says later on, she's like, I can hear every single thing.
Point out one thing. Paul invites Mary to come in and sit with her. And Kuntz's reaction to that, I thought we were going to get some real sweaty white guy acting going on. I thought he was going to drop some real inappropriateness and really solidify his villainhood, but he held back, thankfully, because I would have loved to seen the beating he got from her.
Yeah. Day 6 of being held over, that's when the football star's dad comes on, and you just hear this helicopter coming in. He even says, the guy's just a big softy.
I knew he'd cave.
Yeah. So he runs over even before anybody comes to tell him and packs his stuff up. And I think there's only like 4 more seats in the helicopter or something like that. So
no, I think there's enough
for everybody to go. The students to go.
Yeah.
But Angus, they couldn't get a hold of his
Couldn't get a hold of his parents because they're out doing whatever, which again, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Y'all are having the time of your life, and I'm stuck. I'm going to be stuck here alone. With this guy.
Yes.
Ugh. My mom would have never heard the end of it.
Oh, so many letters.
My mom went to Hawaii one time. My dad was in the Air Guard, so he had a 2-week summer camp in Hawaii.
Nice.
So Mom went the first week he was there. She went with him, and I had to stay home.
Okay.
With my grandparents. I'd never let her live it. Never. I was like, y'all went to Hawaii without me. I don't want to hear it. I never got to go anywhere.
Right.
Branson was as far as we ever went. I was like, come on, you're killing me.
Angus and Paul are sitting down at lunch during one point in time, and probably one of the funniest parts of the whole movie, where Angus gets up and he's like, hey, can I be excused from dinner?
Go to the restroom.
He gets up and he goes over and starts using the phone, and Paul gets up. What are you doing? I didn't say you could use the phone. And Angus is just trying to get a hotel room.
Anywhere.
Get out. Just get out of this place. You know? Thus leads a chase throughout the entire building.
Yeah. Ends up in the new gymnasium, which is completely off limits.
Off limits because they're...
You are a hair's breadth away from suspension.
Says a little bit in Latin because the whole time Paul is kind of saying all this different stuff, and
he's desperately trying to work in ancient history into their daily lives, and it just doesn't want to work.
No,
because teenagers don't care about ancient history.
Right. Angus runs up and he's like, "Hey, watch this. Floor is being lacquered too.
Yeah.
Not supposed to be running on that." So Angus takes off through the gym and he jumps up on one of the gymnastic poses and then
vaults.
Falls. And you just hear.
See, and I thought he was faking, like he
really?
was trying to, really freak Paul's character out.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, see, nothing happened, but he dislocates his shoulder.
Right.
And he's sitting there screaming at him when he's trying to scrape off the windows to get so they can.
Hurry up! Yeah.
He's sitting there holding his arm. I'm like, I would be like, you did that. You did it
yourself.
You're supposed to keep me safe.
Yeah.
I told you not to. I'm a kid.
They go to the emergency room and they're sitting down and the nurse is asking for insurance. Angus says, "Can you please?" I said, "This is the only time I get with my dad, and my dad just wanted me to go out, play basketball or something like that." And
lie, basically.
Yeah.
A big lie.
Sweet talks the nurse into being able to pay by cash.
Yeah.
Paul's like, "We are Barton men. Barton men do not lie."
I just saved your job.
Saved your job because you're supposed to keep me safe. He's like, "You don't turn this around on me." He said, "Well, if I got hurt, they're going to call my parents, and who's responsible for me? You are." Tough.
That's it.
The doctor goes in, and they have to relocate his shoulder, and I've never popped my shoulder out. Have you guys?
No. I've had a shoulder separation, but I never dislocated it, and that was painful enough.
They go back, and again, it's just Mary. Mary's trying to tell Paul, like, this kid is alone on Christmas and just with you. Maybe you could give him a break.
Yeah.
Because
be nice.
Yeah.
Just be nice.
Just be nice to him.
Be a human being.
And Mary is also still kind of dealing with the death of her son.
Yeah.
She's thrown herself into her work, and now that, from my perspective anyway, she's thrown herself into this work. Now that she's kind of alone, she's having a lot more time to process and deal with.
Yep. She's got to face it. They get invited to a Christmas party.
Angus and Paul go out. They have a
cheeseburger, and Angus is angling for a beer. He really wants a beer, but he's not going to get one.
Miller High Life.
It's the champagne of beers.
Champagne of beers.
Come on, man.
Almost gets in a fight over pinball, which,
right.
Just saying, he put the quarters down. That's how the rules should go. But
townies think different, and that's one lesson you learn real quick. You don't mess with the townies unless you're rolling deep with a crew.
Yeah, right. Lydia is the secretary at the school, and she works part-time at the diner. So she sees Paul, and she's like, hey, you guys should come over for Christmas. I'm having a Christmas party. It'll be fun. Paul is pretty apprehensive at first about it, but Mary lays down the law in the kitchen, and she's like, you're going to take this boy to this party because you don't got a Christmas tree, you don't got nothing for him for Christmas, so we got to go out and do something.
Right.
They get ready, they go. Our characters veer off into their own sections of this house at Lydia's. Mary is in charge of the music. Who put her in charge of the music?
I did.
She did.
That's right. What was the custodian's name? I can't remember.
So Barton also has the janitor, and I think he's only in like 3 scenes in the entire movie, but
it's clear that he has feelings for Mary.
Sitting down, and they're kind of listening to music, and he gets her gift, and he's like, well, I didn't get you nothing. And he goes, yeah, you did. You got me that smile. There it is. So I love that. Lydia introduces her niece to Angus, and Angus and her go downstairs.
Where all the kids are.
Start finger painting, and Angus has his first kiss with this girl. And this is set up so well, too, where there's definitely a turn at this party, and all of the except for maybe Angus's, gets kind of flipped up on its head. Paul is thinking that Lydia is hitting on him. Oh, you're sitting under the mistletoe. She gives him a kiss, and then he spouts off some ancient Roman fact about mistletoe, and she's like, oh,
that's great.
Cool.
Real ladies' man.
Like, 1 second. Somebody's at the door, gets up, she starts kissing the guy that just came through. She has a boyfriend.
Damn it.
Paul's a little bummed. Angus comes in and, hey, we need to talk. Mary's in the kitchen. And earlier, too, Mary's sitting down and she's listening to the same song that her and her son used to listen to all the time, like the same album. And this guy's like, come on, can we listen to something else? And she's like, back off.
Don't you touch that.
Yeah. Mary gets pulled in the kitchen. Danny, Angus, Paul in there, and they're trying to comfort her, and they're trying to kind of talk her down and decide it's probably best for them to leave the party.
Angus wants to take her home and come back because he's making time with the girl.
Right.
He's the only one having a real good time at this place.
For sure. Paul's like, absolutely not. They're getting into a bickerment again over it. Paul wins out on this discussion. So,
as always.
I think the next morning is Christmas morning, right?
Yeah. He went out. Paul goes out and gets Christmas tree and gifts for both of them.
Gifts.
Yeah, gifts. As Christmas tree is right on par with the Peanuts Christmas special.
Right.
The thing's leaning hard to the right. Looks pretty pathetic. And he gives them both the same gift. Meditations from Marcus Aurelius.
Right.
It's better than the Bible.
Right.
And come to find out he has a case of them
yes.
in his room.
Yeah, when he's packing up, there's like 40. Yeah.
Paul asks Angus, well, what do you want to do?
What can I do to help?
Angus says, well, I'd like to go to Boston. Wanted to go to Boston. Mary says, if you guys are going to Boston, you can drop me off at my sister's. I'll just spend some time up there with her. They go up, and I love that pull up. It's like a flight of stairs.
Yeah, like 9 flights of stairs that you've got to get up there.
And says, Angus, can you help Mary up with her bags? And so Angus walks up like 2 flights. He's like, no, it's the top one. It's the
Keep
top
going.
one. And he's like, God.
Of course it is.
Mary tells Paul, like, just be nice. Just give this kid a good Christmas. Just give him something nice because he's left alone by his family and he doesn't have anybody but you. I'll be honest, I kind of cried during this scene. Mary is going up and her sister comes up. They just hug. Mary's putting up
all the baby stuff from
all this
her
baby
son.
Stuff. Got like the little baby booties. That's what got me.
Yeah, it was pretty rough right there. It was nice to see Mary kind of in her element with her sister, conversing and really getting some good family time. You could tell the difference between Mary at work and Mary at home with her sister. She was a completely different person. You could see her smiling and talking, and it felt nice to see her be comforted because of the group. She's really the only one that really has any real problems.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say Angus has got some other side issues that he's dealing with, but that don't get made known until later on.
Initially, I think what kind of sets everything off is that Paul is talking to, and this is back at Barton. Well, it's not my fault that your mom and dad didn't want you here. And he's like, my dad's dead. Paul's like, oh, okay. Yeah, my stepdad is the one that is going on vacation with my mom. We're led to believe that
he's dead.
His cemetery is in Boston. At least
that's what we thought.
They're going through the Museum of Fine Arts. I love Paul has a discussion where he says, There's nothing new in human experience, Mr. Tully. Each generation thinks it invented debauchery or suffering or rebellion, but man's every impulse and appetite, from the disgusting to the sublime, is on display right here all around. So before you dismiss something as boring or irrelevant, remember, if you truly want to understand the present or yourself, you must begin in the past. You see, history is not simply the study of the past. It's an explanation of the present. I'm a huge history buff. I love learning about things that happened in the past because they reflect society of today. And I love that line. During this night, they're going out, and Angus wants to go ice skating. So he's ice skating, having a fun time. Apparently, the guy that plays Angus was actually a hockey player, and so he said the hardest thing for him to do was fall down.
Yeah.
As they're leaving, some guy comes up, and he's like, Paul, is that you, Paul? It's like, oh, hey. And Paul's a little bit more apprehensive about what's going on. He's like, what are you doing? And Angus picks up on that. Paul's a little bit embarrassed. He's like, oh, yeah, this is my uncle. He said, tell him about that book you're writing. Yeah. And earlier in the movie, Paul was talking about writing not a novel, but I
can't think of the word. Something graph.
Basically a shorter version of a novel.
Yep.
And Mary says the line, man, even your aspirations you can't do full way through. You
can't even dream all the way.
Yeah. During this discussion, though, Paul makes some stuff up. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm
teaching abroad.
And, this, that, and the other. After this conversation, we learned that Paul actually didn't graduate from Harvard. What had happened was that Paul's roommate copied off of his homework, and in preparation for being called out on it, he accused Paul of
plagiarizing his stuff.
And so since the roommate had connections through the school, Paul didn't really have a good chance, so he got kicked out of the school. And
he hit him with a car. That's why I got kicked out.
Paul ended up getting a job going back to Barton, because that's where he went to school at, and
never went back.
Nobody's ever asked about any of it since.
Yep.
So
kind of sad.
Yeah.
Obviously, very, very intelligent man that kind of got screwed over.
The next morning, Paul gets breakfast and pulls out and he sees some of Angus's medication. Like, hey, you're taking this?
Librium for depression?
Yeah.
Changes the subject.
Yeah, Angus goes in, takes his medicine, and Paul leans down and opens up his bottle of Librium.
Yeah, for his depression. There's more alike than you think.
Right.
So Paul and Angus go to a movie. They go see, I know the name of the movie. It's got Dustin Hoffman in it, but I can't think of the movie.
Oh, yeah. It was with the Native American tribe. And
he's well, it's only 54 years ago. You can get it.
Yeah.
If Dave were here, he would look it up.
Oh, yeah. He'd already be on it.
Mm-hmm. Little Big Man was Dustin Hoffman movie.
Oh, there you go. During the movie, Paul's talking about, this is actually a fairly good representation of the
Native American life. The Cheyenne.
Yeah, Angus gets up and says, hey, I just need to go to the bathroom real quick. And Paul starts his pipe and he's like, I did it again. Picks up on that Angus is trying to give him the slip. He runs out, catches him in the cab. I just want to see my dad.
Go with me.
I don't care. Go with me.
Sure, we can go to a cemetery. And he's like,
maybe. Well, turns out that they go to a mental institution. Paul's dad's not actually dead. He was just
severely mentally ill. Schizophrenia and pre-Alzheimer's and dementia.
He sits down with his dad and he's trying to tell him, hey, I'm doing pretty good at the school and, I'm
keeping my grades up.
He said, I got this thing with the tennis, but I'm not going to get into that too much. And the dad just nodding along and
kind of leans in.
He thinks he's going to say something nice and he's like, I think they're putting something in my food. And I'm like, oh, man. It's such a bummer, too, because it's a really good build-up and it's a really good discussion. And then as soon as he leans in, you think that he's going to say something like, I love you, son, or something like that, or I'm proud of you. And it's, no, they're putting something in my food.
Probably are.
The two scenes. So the one the night before where he runs into the old classmate, and then at the mental hospital, really humanized
both of
Paul Giamatti's character a lot. I mean, because I think the other Angus, it was humanized with two younger kids, so you had a little empathy there. But after you learn that, and you just he becomes really sympathetic character because he's highly intelligent. He's working at the school, and he had so much promise, and I think in his mind is wasting his potential and his life teaching spoiled kids who don't appreciate it. And so that's where the movie really turned. I enjoyed it, but then it became really deep then because both of them bonded over, because nobody else knows that he didn't graduate from Harvard, and now Angus does, and he's keeping that, and then he sees him with the father, and I think they understand what makes each of them tick after all of that. And that's why, not to get to the end, but that's what made the ending so meaningful, is that two people that don't connect with anybody else hardly connected with each other with those two scenes.
And also, forgot Mary has a really good conversation with Paul about how she was trying to pay for her son to go to college, but she couldn't afford it. And the only thing that she could afford to do was pay for him to go to Barton, which would give him more opportunities, hopefully the same opportunities, and maybe even network with some of these kids to be able to go to a school. Since they didn't have the money and he didn't get as much scholarships to go.
He got drafted into the Army, and he died in Vietnam. But before he died, told his mom, well, at least now when I get back, I can go to college on the GI Bill.
Yeah, that was sad.
That was
rough,
gut-wrenching right there, and just all for nothing. All the sacrifice that she went through and did everything for him and put him in that position. It's money. It's always effing money.
Yeah.
It's going to keep these kids from
being able to
achieve their potential.
Right.
And it's really sad. And I hate to say it, but I kind of see that coming in this country in the near future.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
And also, after that conversation, Paul has one with Angus, and he's just says the same thing to him. He's like, you don't realize the opportunities that you have right now that you're just squandering.
Yeah.
You know, and he says, without all this prior knowledge about his dad and whatnot, he's saying you're just a spoiled brat that doesn't want to live up to his potential. You have all these opportunities and you're so smart and you just are pissing it away, basically.
Yep.
The movie has little bits of character growth throughout the movie as well, where these hard-edged characters get smoothed out and learn about what's going on with everybody else's lives. So,
I think one of the great points in the movie is when they're at the museum, Paul tells them that, his little spiel, and Angus is like, well, when you say it like that, it's infinitely more interesting.
Yeah.
He says, you got to work on that.
Yeah.
So that's why you're losing all the kids. That's why the kids hate you and most of the faculty. You know that, right?
You know that, right?
I mean, I know he's just telling the truth and he's just trying to be helpful, but he has no tact whatsoever. No bedside manner when it comes to delivering those blows. And I'm just like, bruh, ease up a little bit.
Blunt, just like his teacher.
Yeah, so it's pretty hardcore. Yeah. And then we have another conversation with Paul and Angus where after they go to the mental hospital and he tells them, you can see that it's just in the front of his mind all the time, but he's going to end up like his dad.
Yeah.
He's already struggling with mental health issues because, he's taken the Librium.
Yeah.
He sees a psychiatrist. He's struggling with a lot of different stuff, and he's so worried that he's going to end up like his dad. He can't help acting out the way he does.
And it's so scary, too, from Angus's perspective because according to him, and again, it's from a teenager, so maybe he doesn't know everything that's going behind doors, but he knows enough. To him, it was just his dad, had some issues, just like most parents do, and then just one day it was just like that.
Yeah,
and
he feels like mom
gone.
Just stashed him away in some nut house.
Yeah,
and divorced him and moved on, and now she's stashing Angus in a boarding school,
trying to get rid of him.
The fourth one so far. If he gets kicked out one more time, he's going to military academy, which we all know he'll probably end up in Vietnam.
Yep.
Hopefully that doesn't happen.
Right. We come back and we pick up Mary on the way back, and it's fun. I mean, there's good bits of music. There's a lot of good shots, good cinematography, and
you could definitely tell that was
shots.
an East Coast town.
Right. A lot of snow and everything.
Well, everything looks like it's the original everything. Everything's just old.
We go back, and then school starts up. They're sitting down in class, and Paul gets pulled by Lydia and says, hey, the headmaster needs to see you. So he goes into the headmaster's room, and Angus is sitting off on the side, and they're kind of,
this could be bad.
Also, earlier in the movie, they go bowling. Paul sits down with Angus, and Angus is like, so whenever I'm talking to you, which eye do I...
Is it this one?
Is it that one? And, Paul just kind of laughs. We're just setting up the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Paul goes in, and Angus's mom and stepdad's in there. And so you guys went to Boston, right? And he says, yeah, it's totally within my guidelines as a teacher. I was able to take him, on a field trip to Boston. We went to the museum. You guys go anywhere else? He goes, I'm not sure. And he says, well, apparently you guys went and saw Angus's dad and
gave him this.
And gave him this. The snow globe, I guess, wound up in Dad's hands, and he tried to attack an orderly with it. So now I'm having to move him because even though Angus is completely not allowed to see him, I've told him that he can't do this. Still did it. Almost attacked an orderly. So now we're going to have to move.
He must have manipulated you or lied to you or got you to do whatever, and he could have saved himself and his job, but he couldn't let Paul. Angus be shipped off to the military academy because he knows, and he goes, this is wrong. He's a good kid. He has a lot of potential, and you're squandering it if you send him to military academy. And she says something else. He goes, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You left him here on Christmas, and I did what I did to give him some sort of joy for Christmas, and I would do it again. I thought he could see his father for Christmas since you weren't here.
And nobody could get a hold of you at all.
Yeah, you were unreachable. Sorry. It was my idea. So, and he tells him, like, look, you got to leave him in this school because if you take him out, it's going to be disaster. You'll lose your son. Fortunately for Angus, it worked. And I think fortunately for Paul, he lost his job.
Yeah.
Because he's finally going to get out of that school and go do something that he's always talked about doing.
Paul, he goes up to the headmaster, and the headmaster's like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you're going to just go through with this? Earlier in the movie, the headmaster was saying, hey, you're too hard on these dang kids. Why don't you give them a break? And now he's saying, are you sure you're going to go through with this? And Paul says to him, he says, you know, you're a student, and now you're the headmaster. So I feel like I'm the only person qualified to say that you are nothing but penis cancer in human form. Walks out. Goes over, and Mary and Angus are sitting out. Looks at Angus, and he says, this eye. And they walk out.
Yeah, that was a good goodbye.
Oh, and yeah, Koontz, before that, I'll cut that in, just say exactly what you said earlier, but we'll go through this. Koontz is in class, and his face is just burnt to a crisp.
I mean, he's got blisters on his forehead. It's so bad.
Sunburnt. So him and Park are standing outside, and they're looking over at Paul packing up a little U-Haul, and he's packing up all this stuff. Mary says goodbye to him. I wish you well, and I think this is going to be good for you. And she hands him a book. Paul's looking through it, and he's like, yeah, there's nothing in this book. She's like, good. You can fill it with your book that you're going to write. Angus comes over, and he sees Park and Koontz. Koontz is like, yeah, I heard that he's fired because he was just eating turds
out of the toilet.
Straight out of the toilet. That's what he was doing. It's like, really? It's like, yeah, totally was.
That's totally what happened.
So,
come on.
Angus goes over and says goodbye to Paul and says, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And Paul's like, well, don't squander it. And he said, you know, you better not squander your opportunity either. In so many words.
Right.
Paul gets in the vehicle and takes off. They pull up to that stoplight, and
I love that one of the last scenes, the headmaster had the
Louis tray. That was a $3,000 bottle of booze.
And you look over and he has it, and
he's
then
swigging
takes a
it.
giant swig out of
spits it all out.
Yeah.
To me, that was like a giant
just
F you
spit
to the
currency at
whole
you.
school. Yeah.
We didn't mention, sorry to cut you off,
Okay.
that Paul Giamatti's character was drunk for about a third of his time with
this
these
movie.
Kids,
Right.
which I don't blame him.
Right.
I'd probably be
But
driven
I
to
read
drink.
somewhere where somebody thought the act of spitting out was him. I'm not going to drink anymore, and I didn't take that at all. I thought
didn't.
it was more a F you to the headmaster, to the school,
Yeah.
pompousness, all of that. It was just a giant F you to all of them, and I thought it was a great, great way to end it. Because now, I mean, he's had disappointment, and he's felt like he's wasted, and now I think there's a little hope that he's free, and he's going to maybe use those gifts. Even Mary, when she was sitting on the couch with him, when he said, "Oh, your son has so much talent," and my son thought you were an asshole. I remember her saying that, and, and that kind of hit him, and I think he's realizing now.
He was astute.
Yeah.
Very accurate. In that.
You leave with some hope for both Angus and him, that they found each other, and then they found maybe their purpose.
You spent your entire high school at a prep school, right?
At boarding school, place in Kansas City, Kansas, and it was for, they don't have, I don't think there are any of these in the country anymore, but at that time they had called preparatory seminaries. So if you were thinking of the priesthood high school, they would have high school seminaries or minor seminaries where you would explore, whether you had that calling, and then it was pretty rigorous academics. And so we lived there from Sunday through Friday, and then we went home on the weekends. So,
oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, it sounds like, oh my God, you guys had it was prayers all day and everything else. But now if you met my classmates, so Johnson and Javier and Dave and everybody else, we're still best of friends 40 years later, but it wasn't all that. We had a lot of fun while we were there, and I could relate to the movie a lot just because of the characters, because you had a lot of the characters from this film, of course, were people we saw all the time. And so you had the academics and the jocks, and you had the space cases, and you had actually had somebody just like Angus. I won't name their name, but we had somebody similar to Angus as well. And so, I really related to a lot of that as far as the movie was concerned.
You weren't Koontz, were you?
No. No, the Coons in our class left after a year. So, But no, people ask me, it was an all-boys school. It was hard being away from family during the week, and I don't think any of us would trade what we experienced for anything because we had a lot of fun. And like I said, there's not too many people who are best friends 40 years later with their high school friends like we are.
Yeah, that's cool. Is there any story that particularly stands out? Just any...
Just to protect the guilty, I probably shouldn't get into too many of them. But yeah, we had a lot of fun during our time there. And what's fun is going back to reunions now. Some of the priests that were in charge of us will come to our reunions, and it's fun, drinking a beer with them and then sharing the stories about who was responsible for this or that they always wondered about, like the beer pyramid that was built in the guest dorm, or when the girls from some high school were there for a weekend retreat. And I won't get into too much detail on that, but there were just a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff that happened that had a lot of fun. So it's kind of cool reliving those with the people that were in charge of you at the time.
Right. Throw it in their face a little bit.
Well, no, they just laughed, and sometimes they actually knew. And,
we
knew
we
some
knew
of the
that.
stuff that we thought we were
totally
so
knew that
sly,
was you.
But,
Sneaking out to a concert, I remember hearing a little bit of that.
Oh, yeah, that's a story a lot of people like to talk about. We weren't really supposed to leave campus unless there was some special event, and so we told Father that the orchestra was going to be in town and that we would like to go see the orchestra because thought that might be good just for our education and sort of culture and some things like that. And we didn't share that it was the Electric Light Orchestra. Right. So we left, and my dad was supposed to take us according to what we told Father, and it was actually some girls from Topeka at Hayden High School that were coming through. So we almost got away with it, and then when they dropping us off after midnight and we got out of the car, somebody tripped, and that might have been me, and some aluminum cans fell out.
Oh, no.
And I can't remember what was in the aluminum cans. But,
soda pop, had to been.
Yeah,
and I look at the front door, and there's Father Mullen, peering out the window, and so the girls took off, dropped us off. We came in, he said, "Kevin, that did not look like your father." And I said, didn't I tell you we were able to get a ride with some friends? And
Yeah.
That was my sister.
he's like,
You don't have a sister.
we will talk about this in the morning. So,
You normally kiss your sister on the lips like that?
yeah.
Very loving family.
Yeah, what was the one with
Ferris Bueller.
No, what was the one with Julie Roberts' niece and Jennifer Aniston and Sudeikis, where they drive the RV?
We're the Millers.
We're the Millers, yeah, and they're practicing. Well, we're going to teach you how to kiss.
Not so much. The effect of Paul Hunnam's lazy eye was actually achieved by an opaque contact lens. In an interview with Howard Stern, Paul Giamatti said that the effect was so convincing that even one of his childhood friends that thought that there was actually something wrong with his eye. Giamatti was initially very squeamish about wearing the lens and the way that it had to be applied and removed, although he got accustomed to it over time, and it caused all sorts of problems during production because it left Paul Giamatti effectively blind in one eye.
Yeah.
Most of his scenes where he had to drive and park a car were particularly difficult, he says. So,
And you think you could take that out for those scenes?
right.
I love him as an actor. I'm embarrassed to say I did this, but what was it, Sideways or
Yeah.
I mean, all of these great movies that he's
Same
been
movie
in.
with the director of this movie.
Yeah, was on that.
Yeah, so.
But I thought, God, I never noticed he
Payne.
had a lazy eye.
Right.
So I Googled it and then found out that, he used
Later on.
some type of contact to make that effect. Because I was like, I never noticed that
I
before.
didn't either, yeah.
So-
Same thing with me. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so. Any final thoughts before we get into our ratings?
No, I'm pretty satisfied.
Cool. We have an S through F rating scale, S being the best, and on this podcast we can only have 10 S's. Once we get 11, then one of them will have to be kicked off. Currently we have 4 movies now in our S tier. We have Jaws, The Way Back, The Exorcist, and our new addition is Elf with Will Ferrell.
What happened to In Cold Blood? Did that not make the cut?
Didn't get an S, partner. Sorry.
Bummer.
God.
I know. Bummer. Then we have A, which is, it's fantastic with a couple flaws here and there. And then B is, it's a good movie. C is your average movie. D is just
Bad.
couple redeeming qualities. And then F is just absolutely awful. We only have 2 F movies, Jason Takes Manhattan and The Item, which I don't think there will ever be a movie worse than The Item, but we'll see.
I don't think so.
With that being said, Dad, you are our guest tonight. Would you like to go first in your rating, or would you like to go?
Sure.
Okay.
And I know since I'm the guest, I don't have to follow all of your rules.
guidelines.
So I'm going to use a minus. So I would give this an A minus.
Really? Okay.
I love, and I'm a sucker for anything, 60s, 70s era, touch on, class struggle, Vietnam, prep school element, or the boarding school element. I just love the acting. I thought the kid Angus, the kid that played that for a first movie. Wow. I mean, I think he's got a bright future.
Yeah.
And Paul Giamatti, the cook. I mean, I thought the acting was great, the cinematography great, soundtrack, good soundtrack, and then some redeeming qualities that come at the end. So I mean, everything that you want to see in a movie, I think it had. Might have taken a little bit to get there, which is why it's probably not an A, but an A minus. I thought it was an excellent movie, and I'd recommend it.
Lee?
I agree a lot. Acting was top notch. Paul Giamatti, again, is one of my favorite actors. Him in Cinderella Man was just great. Just love the dude. Kid that played Angus, Dominic Sessa, that was it? I did not know that was his first acting gig, and I thought he killed it.
Oh, yeah.
That's his first gig. He did
Sessa.
rather well. And then, of course, Mary's character was, I think, the highlight of the film.
Divine
for
Rudolph.
me. Yeah, I think she was great. She was really, really good. I thought the movie had a little pacing problem, kind of choppy, kind of slow in the middle. The soundtrack was great.
Oh, I loved
just
it.
Right on. I loved playing the guessing game until we confirmed that it was 1970 of what year it was.
Yeah.
We first started. I said it's got to be early 70s. It can't. It's no further than 73. I can guarantee you that. With all these haircuts, there's just it's just not going to happen. And then they confirmed it was 1970. I was like, all right. So I thought they did a really good job. Their period piece, keeping it accurate for the time. Again, it was a bit slow. Payoff was really late.
Yeah.
Slow burn,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
I would have liked them to hit the mental hospital a little earlier in the film because it kind of would give you a little bit more insight on why Angus is how he is. I think it would have played out a little bit better.
Okay.
I don't really have any major complaints about it. I give it a B+.
B+?
It's a good movie. I don't know that I'll watch it again. Annie fell asleep watching it.
Yeah.
I stayed awake because I had to, and I was interested in the movie. I identified with Paul Giamatti's character the most because I'm a stickler for a lot of stuff, and I don't put up with guff from people that don't get any leeway.
Yeah.
So, yeah, B+.
This was probably like my third time watching this movie for the review. I think this is going to be added. I know this is silly, but I think this is going to be added into Chelsea and I's yearly Christmas routine. I don't know if we'll watch it with Logan every time. Logan did sit down and watch it with us. We had to cover his eyes during one or two scenes. But over that, I think that we sat down and we had a really long conversation about how, especially for like Angus's and even a little bit for Paul's character too, where a lot of their growth happened when they were taken out of their comfort zone.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people, even today, don't learn because they never leave that comfort zone.
Right.
Like when we went to China to adopt my sister, I think it was kind of a huge eye-opener for me in particular because it was like, this is how the rest of the world lives because this is just someplace on a map. And then until you're actually there,
right.
Even within the U.S., it's one of those where it's like, it's not just a place on the map anymore. Like, people are living and breathing here and they have their own struggles and their own, everything else that they're dealing with. For Angus, even though he has some of this stuff going on, he's not taken out of that comfort zone until he experiences what this jerk teacher is going through. And same with Paul, where it's like, this snot-nosed kid has his own struggles with his dad and he's struggling with mental illness and, his fears for the future as well. And that's something that I felt like I could really relate to. I really related to a lot of these characters and the growth, and especially with Mary. She actually won Best Supporting Actress for this role, and this movie was also nominated for 5 Academy Awards or something like that, including Best Picture, but ended up losing out. That being said, man, I was really close to giving this movie an S, but I feel like you guys kind of brought me down to somewhere to like an A plus somewhere in there. I'm going to probably solidify with probably an A because I think you guys are right. Even though I do love the meandering of the movie, and I think that's kind of a harsh word to use, meandering, but it does kind of take its time, and we're kind of sitting through when you got a lot of shots of just centering in. But this is just something I can sit down and just enjoy, and I probably would just sit down and watch it all the way through if somebody put it on.
Oh yeah.
So that being said, only bad thing you guys were saying with pacing, and also I feel like I wish that I had a little bit more confrontation between Paul Giamatti and the parents. Even though I think what we get is great.
Yeah.
I think I just wanted a little bit more.
Right.
But other than that, A. So B+, A-, A+. So What do you guys think? A minus?
A minus.
A somewhere in there?
I'd say, A minus.
A minus.
A plus. So
A minus? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good with A minus. All right, cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for coming.
It was
thanks
a lot
for
of
having
fun.
me.
So,
It
yeah.
always is fun.
If you think of another one, let us know.
Yeah, we'd love to have you on
Well,
again.
when you cover Billy Jack, give me a call.
Yeah.
I'm going to put this left foot here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the right side of your face.
Depending on when Dave gets back, I'll try and splice in his thoughts on it because I think he was wanting to give his rating on this movie as well. So
Awesome.
All right.
awesome, cool,
Sounds good.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Oi, oi.
Oi, oi. We got Dave for his review of.
I dropped the microphone, so it had fuzzies on it.
Oh, fucking dogs, man.
Hey, you're telling me I know all about them.
Dave, what did you think about the Holdovers?
I mean, I thought it was great. I thought the acting was superb. I thought that it was shot beautifully. I loved the soundtrack. Soundtrack was amazing to that. I mean, from the opening song, I was like, ooh, this is going to be like, yeah. I thought the story overall was pretty depressing.
Yeah.
You know, it's a coming of age movie, but it's coming of age of the older generation and the younger generation. Like they're growing up together in the film, right? So Paul Giamatti was, I mean, you just talk about character development, like how much he changes throughout it, and Tully as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I wasn't that big of a fan of the ending of it.
Okay.
I thought there wasn't enough resolve.
Right. It
That's-
was a little anticlimactic.
I agree. Like when he was about to go off on the parents, I was like, "Oh yeah, let him have it."
we go.
You know what I
They should've
mean?
shown that.
Yeah, like let him have it.
Yeah.
Like what pieces of shit you are, you know?
Yeah, you're losing your job.
Anyways, so but he's
Go
so
for broke.
he's so proper in it. I think that's where he stops.
Yeah.
He's able to pull back, and I laughed at penis cancer pretty hard.
Yeah.
When he called the
In human
dean penis cancer in human form. So the ending, I'm gonna give it an A minus.
Okay.
And it's just because of how I felt at the end.
Yeah.
I was like, God, the whole movie, I loved it.
Yeah.
And I don't think there was enough resolve with the cook. What's her name?
Mary. I thought she killed. She was.
She
great.
was. I loved her.
Yeah, she
like
was great.
I mean, phenomenal acting. Her story was great, and then they kind of just cut her out for 45 minutes.
For the first 2/3 of the movie, she was the only likable character.
I agree, and I wish that when they went on their adventure in Boston, she went with them. I know that she had to go to her sister's, but maybe that just be a stop, and she's seeing family, and then she joins up with them. Because I would have liked to seen
It was nice.
all of them together.
It was nice to see her interacting with her family and her change, her whole demeanor.
Yeah,
When she's with
yeah,
her
because the
family
Christmas
and-
party was rough. I mean, you get it though. Like you're like, oh my gosh. But overall, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
It's a great movie.
The actress actually won Best Supporting Actress for that year.
Oh really?
Yeah. So.
That's awesome. Great movie. Good suggestion. Who was it? You that suggested that?
Yeah, Dad and I, we were kind of waiting for his movie for this year to be.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, a Christmas movie. It's like Harry Potter for poor people, like for
rich
muggles.
Yeah.
For muggles,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you get stuck at school, can't go on the ski trip.
Right.
Stuck at school with Snape.
Yeah, yep.
Have to live in the
The
infirmary.
infirmary.
Yeah.
I thought that was dog shit too.
Yeah.
I was like, come on.
Can't go in the gym. Like, give me a
Come on.
break.
What are we gonna do for 2 weeks?
Well, it
Right.
was being.
and they were lacquering the
the
floor.
We actually ended up giving it a A minus. So.
Oh, you did? Oh, it was right on then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
Right on the money. I gave it a B plus.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Cool.
thanks.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good suggestion.
Hello and welcome to Postcast. Apologies for the week-long hiatus. Illness went rampant and took us out for a while, but we're back at it. Stay safe this cold season. I also wanted to say thank you to all of our loyal and shout out to all of our new listeners and subscribers. Thanks for helping us and supporting us on this journey. We hope to hit 300 subs by the end of the year. We invite you all to check out our Facebook group or check out our Reddit sub. Be sure to tell us in the comments what you think the movie should be rated or what movie we should record next. And be sure to follow us wherever podcasts are found. Join us and get caught up on our next Attack on Anime episode as we cover the OVAs episode 1 and 2 of Attack on Titan, coming Thursday, December 19th. Also, check out our next Christmas movie review, Monday, December 23rd, with one of the OG Christmas classics, It's a Wonderful Life. It's such a fun review that we actually had a group party just to review this movie. We hope you've all enjoyed our program just as much as we did recording for you. Thank you, and stay tuned for our next episode.